With the release of episode 1136 today, we're finally reaching the emotional end of Kuma's flashback. That means it's time to return to the present timeline, where the long-awaited showdown between the crew and Saturn on Egghead Island is about to begin. This episode adapts chapter 1102 in its entirety and is titled Kuma's Life. Now, since I can't upload the episode here due to copyright issues, I've decided to break it down for you with a full, in-depth summary, something that not only sets the stage for what you're about to see, but also gives you a deeper understanding of the story's emotional weight and narrative layers. The episode kicks off with Bonnie arriving on an island with her crew, believing that her father, Bartholomew Kuma, might be there. Hopes were high, and hearts were heavy with longing, but that emotional journey was quickly cut short when they were met with a barrage of marine firepower. The Navy mistook them for dangerous pirates after reports surfaced that the towns they'd visited were filled with injured children and elderly citizens. What the Marines didn't realize, however, was that these weren't actual children or old people. They were regular folks whose ages had been altered by Bonnie's time-based devil fruit powers. Deep in the heart of the island, Kuma was actually there, watching silently from the shadows. He heard Bonnie calling out for him, desperate and full of sorrow, but he couldn't answer. He knew that revealing himself would put her in danger, even though every part of him ached to hold his daughter again. And the last thing he ever expected was for Bonnie to become a pirate. So Kuma left the island in silence. And Bonnie, despite her heartbreak, chose to keep going. She wasn't just searching for her father anymore, she was chasing after Nika, the legendary symbol of freedom. In her heart, she believed that if she could find Nika, her father might smile again. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, news of Luffy's victory over the Arlong pirates was spreading like wildfire. His very first bounty poster was finally released, a moment that caught the attention of Dragon himself. That was the spark that pushed Dragon to head toward Logtown, hoping to catch a glimpse of his son, especially after learning that Smoker was in control of the region. At the same time, Ace told Jinbei about his little brother Luffy, which shocked Jinbei, especially since Arlong was no pushover. And then, in a quiet, powerful moment, Kuma saw Luffy's bounty poster. He just stared at it, reflecting on the irony of fate, Dragon's son, and his own daughter Bonnie, both walking the path of piracy. Bonnie had made up her mind, crystal clear and with fierce determination. From now on, her crew would only steal from the wicked, and unless a cry for help truly demanded it, they wouldn't intervene. She painted her lips in bold red and redrew her signature markings like a declaration to the world. She had grown up. Deep down, she hoped that if her father, Kuma, ever saw her again, he'd recognize her through this transformation, and maybe even take pride in the name she was trying to build. Meanwhile, back on Egghead Island, Kuma stood in silence, watching the pacifista models fashioned after his own image. There was a discomfort in his eyes, but Dr. Vegapunk reassured him. The project was progressing just as expected, just like the past modifications done to his body. During a quiet moment between them, Kuma brought up Luffy. Vegapunk was stunned. Dragon had a son? And for Kuma, Luffy's declaration of war against the world government back in Eni's lobby sparked something deep inside him. It reminded him of the legend of Nika, especially with that bizarre rubber ability Luffy had. Later, Kuma made his way to Thriller Bark, arriving just after the Straw Hats had defeated Gecko Moria. His mission was to capture Luffy, but the moment he witnessed the bond, how fiercely Luffy's friends were willing to risk everything for him, he backed off. That kind of loyalty, Kuma saw something in it, something powerful. He knew this young man would one day carry a great legacy. Then came Sabaody Archipelago. There, news broke of Ace's imminent execution and the war brewing with Whitebeard. Kuma promised to attend, but before that, he spotted Bonnie in a restaurant, eating happily. Quietly, almost mournfully, he whispered to himself it would be the last time he'd ever see her face, before he lost his free will forever. Moments later, chaos erupted. One of the celestial dragons had been attacked at the human auction house. Kuma was shocked to learn that the culprit was none other than Luffy, who had punched the dragon in defense of Hatchin, a fishman. When Kuma confronted the Straw Hats shortly after and began separating them across the world, he silently apologized to both Dragon and Ivankov. His actions may have seemed brutal, but he believed in something greater, that through Luffy and Bonnie, he could still leave a mark on this world. And when Luffy screamed in anguish, thinking he'd failed to protect his crew, Kuma heard him deep inside and thought, "You're wrong. You didn't fail them. They just weren't ready yet. They needed to grow stronger to survive the new world. Back on Egghead, Vegapunk found himself under immense pressure from Saturn, who issued a cold, inhuman order. Install a self-destruct mechanism inside Kuma's body in case he ever disobeyed. Vegapunk tried to preserve a fragment of Kuma's personality, but Saturn wasn't having it, threatening severe punishment if the scientist disobeyed. When Vegapunk sadly remarked that Kuma would never see his daughter again, Kuma, with quiet gratitude, replied that he was thankful to even understand what that loss felt like, reminding Vegapunk that it was he who gave him the ability to hear, to truly feel. In a final, heartfelt farewell, Kuma thanked Vegapunk for everything, for his kindness and for the companionship they shared over the past 2 years. He asked for one last favor, to be programmed to protect the Straw Hat ship until one of the crew members returned. It was his way of staying connected, of making up for the absence he knew would follow. When Vegapunk asked what Kuma truly thought of Luffy, Kuma smiled and said he reminded him of Nika, the mythical figure of liberation, and that he believed Luffy had the power to change the world for the better. Before undergoing the final modifications that would strip away his free will, Kuma agreed to extract a memory bubble, his own memories, so Vegapunk could study it. He warned that the bubble would vanish if touched, but Vegapunk, in classic genius fashion, created a way to preserve it. As Kuma watched the reel of his own life flash before him, he wondered if he had hurt anyone along the way. With tears streaming down his face, Vegapunk reassured him. Kuma's life had never been a burden. It was his death that would break the hearts of those who loved him. Vegapunk called him a hero, and for the first time in a long while, Kuma smiled in gratitude. Just before he lost his will forever, Kuma made one last request. If Vegapunk ever met Bonnie again, he asked him to wish her a happy 10th birthday. And then, cut back to the present timeline. Bonnie stands before the memory bubble, having seen it all. Her father's heart, his pain, his sacrifice, his love. And as the bubble finally vanished, Bonnie broke down in tears, the weight of it all crashing over her. She had finally seen the truth, just how deeply, completely, and unconditionally her father had loved her.